Hello, Richard Gordon Loomis here, and I'm sitting here with my friend Ellen Evert Hopman, who has written many books and of very great interest to all of us, and we'd like to speak to you about some of them. Would you like to tell us a little about yourself?
Well, sure. We're here in the garden on Beltane, and I know it's Beltane because the hawthorn bloomed. The very first hawthorn blossom happened today. So it's officially Beltane. And so it's very nice to be speaking with you about the books. And as you can see, I have a few books. Every book that you see here was written here at this place, in this house. And this was the first one, Tree Medicine, Tree Magic, which is supposed to be re-released this year, hopefully in June, so a month from now. Although I haven't had a firm date yet, but I've added more tree recipes. So for every tree, there's ways to make wine and to eat the trees, you know, that's in here. And also really beautiful full color botanical illustrations. So this book happened because I moved here in 1986, quite a while ago, when I was a grad student at the University of Massachusetts. And at the time, I had never really lived in New England, except when I was a child years ago. And I couldn't understand how people survived here because the growing season was so short. Back then, although things have changed now, back then you had the first frosts in the middle of September. And then you couldn't really plant anything until around Memorial Day. I mean, everything you see here, these are perennials. And if I'm going to plant vegetables or annuals, anything like that, it's really only safe after Memorial Day. Right. So that only gives you a few months. So I said, how on earth did they do it? Because the settlers didn't have grocery stores, Native Americans didn't have grocery stores, and I just couldn't picture it. And then I looked out the window and I saw the trees and I said, holy cow, they must have been using the trees. And then I went looking for a book that would show me how to use trees for food and medicine. Couldn't find a book. And so I tried for a few months. I even went to a science library. There was nothing. There was no comprehensive book like that. So I was studying mental health counseling at the time. But for some reason, my inner voice just said, you got to write the book. You know, you can't find it, you got to write it. So then I went, okay, I got to write the book. So while I was in graduate school, I wrote the book. That's how crazy I am. and that's what I've done ever since. Yeah. I was not an English major. You know, I wasn't trained to write books. I just started writing and I've never looked back. So this was number one. This is what started it all, and hopefully it's coming full circle now. So
yeah, I can't wait for your new edition of this. I have the original, so that's good.
Let's see, what was the next one? Okay, the next one, this was number 2. This is a Druids Herbal for the Sacred Earth year. And I was already a Druid. I've been a Druid officially since 1984. I, in my mind, became a Druid in 1983, but I joined ADF. That was the first group that I joined in 1984, and did my initiation, my first circle, and then I did my second circle and all that. So because I was an herbalist and I was a Druid, so for the next book I thought, gee, let me write an herbal for Druids. So this is very Irish based. And it goes through the Wheel of the Year, and it tells what herbs and flowers and medicinal plants are appropriate for rituals throughout the Wheel of the Year. And it also goes into things like funerals, child blessings, baby blessings, house blessings, weddings, what herbs are appropriate for those things, and then herbal astrology as well. So that was number 2. And let's see, what was number 3? Well,
I was just going to say that one was.
This was 3 or 4, but I actually worked on this for 9 years because I didn't know anything about writing fiction. This is a novel, Priestess of the Forest. The protagonists are herbalists who happen to be druids, and it takes place in the Iron Age in Ireland. So all through the text I have old Irish terms, druidic terms, for druidic tools, druidic concepts, druidic prayers. And Alexei Kondratiev, who was a friend of mine and a linguist and a druid, was incredibly kind, and he helped me with the Old Irish. So all my novels have Old Irish glossaries with, pronunciation guide that Alexei helped me with.
Yeah,
and
valuable.
So it took 9 years to write this. And then finally, when I found a publisher, they edited it down. I think it was 500 pages originally. Now it's down to 200 something. So they did quite a lot of paring away. And this book hopefully will be turned into a film of some kind. That's what I'm working on now. We have a script. We have actors and actresses from LA, the real deal. We have a producer, director, and all that. And we just need to do massive fundraising and try to get it off the ground. But anyway, this is 2nd century Ireland, when the very first missionaries are showing up in Ireland and encountering the Druids. And it's written from the Druid perspective. So that was that one. Okay, and then that was fiction. Back to nonfiction. While I was writing that, I worked on this book, and this was originally called People of the Earth. It's now called Being a Pagan. And what I did was, because I was going to a lot of the festivals, I did the festival circuit.
Right.
I was able to interview a lot of people, like Oberon, Oberon Zell, Margot Adler, Starhawk, a lot of other, Isaac Bonowitz, a lot of people. A lot of them were at Starwood, other places as well. But this is nonfiction, and this book has been used in comparative religion courses at the university level, I've been told. So it's, even though it was written in the late 1990s, it's still very relevant because these people are seminal figures in the modern neo-pagan revival.
Right.
Exactly. So there's that.
Very good.
Okay, then I might as well talk about these together. So the second book, this is the sequel to Priestess of the Forest. This time the action moves to the Western Isles of Scotland, specifically to Iona, which is a real place. And when I went to Iona, I walked all around the island. And as I was walking around the island, I have this practice that I do. I call it feeling into, like feeling into the landscape, feeling into stones, things like that. So I walked around the island, I felt into it, and I could intuit where different initiation spots were on the island. Iona was originally called Inis nan Druidniach, which means the Isle of Druids. It was a sacred island of the Druids before Columba got there. And I think that Columba very deliberately went to Iona, and there's this practice that Christians have where they'll identify a pagan sacred site and then plop a church on top of it.
Right.
Well, I think he was doing the same thing. It was already a recognized holy island of the Druids. It was also called the Isle of Yew, and yew, of course, is very, very sacred in
the Y-E-W,
the yew tree.
The bush,
The most important trees in Ireland are ash and yew.
Right.
Those are the most important ones. So he went there, I think, on purpose, and it was like he was imposing Christianity on top of the Druid tradition, you know. So I walked the island, and in this novel, you go around to the different initiation points, and I've been told, somebody wrote to me on Facebook, there is a group in the Midwest that is basing their Druid training on the initiations in this book. And that's what I was hoping would happen with these novels, because I wrote them as bardic teaching tales to really teach the Druid path in the form of a story, which is the old bardic tradition, you know, which would make it more user-friendly, because Druids, most of us are extremely intellectual. And my own tradition, Tribe of the Oak, I'm the Archdruid of Tribe of the Oak, and people take years to finish their training, and we do a lot of reading, and we study, you know, archaeology and history and language and all kinds of things, and not everybody wants to do that. So these novels are a way of making the whole Druid path a little more accessible.
Yeah.
Okay, and then this is the third book in the series, and people are begging me to write another book. That's not going to happen until I can get back over there. But anyway, so this is called Priestess of the Fire Temple, and this one goes back to Ireland again, and it's about Newgrange, which is on the Boyne, and I felt into it, and I saw what was happening there. You know, the rituals that were done with the dead ancestors. You know, the ashes and all that. Right. I don't want to give it away, but. So this is progressing. The first book is when the Druids first appear. By the time you get to this book, when the missionaries first appear, the Christian missionaries first appear, by the time you get to this book, the Druids are starting to accommodate to the Christian religion a little bit more. Not all of them, of course. But what happened historically was the Druids gradually, a lot of them became Christian clergy. So they went from being the clergy of the old religion to being the clergy of the new religion. So the Celtic Church, of course, was very different from the Roman Catholic Church, and that's why, because it was a continuation of the Druidic tradition, which still had a lot of respect for nature, you know, and nature poetry and all kinds of things. Right. But anyway, some people are disappointed because they say, "Oh, in this book, you made the Druids." You know, not object to the Christians so much, but that's historically what happened. Part of what happened. Right, and I was trying to understand that process myself, because as a Druid, it was very mysterious to me why anybody would leave the Druid tradition, which is so rich and so beautiful and so earth-based, and move over to a transcendent, sky-based, monotheist religion, you know. Right. And so I was trying to work it out in my own head as well. And of course, the characters taught me a lot. They said and did things that I never would have thought of. Interesting. And all I did was follow them around, and they showed me what they were doing. And I'll tell you, this is a true story. In the first book, Priestess of the Forest, it came out in February of 2008. And in April of 2008, after the book was out, British archaeologists found the first grave that they decided was a Druid grave. Okay, in the novel, I have a funeral. And that funeral was shown to me by the characters. They showed me what they did, and I just recorded what they were doing, right? In that funeral, it was all about Artemisia, the herb Artemisia. They were drinking Artemisia tea, they were burning it, they were doing all that while sitting with the body so that they could get a vision and communicate with the deceased, right? Well, when the archaeologists opened the first grave that they, in April, after the book came out, that they identified as a Druid grave, there was a container in there, and it had held last Artemisia, Artemisia tea. So again, I mean, it was and all I did really, I mean, I would have an idea of what I thought the story would be, but then the characters would start doing things, and I was like, okay, you know, and all I could do was record what they were doing. So That's
beautiful.
that. Okay.
Well, I have to say, I read the first one, and it brought home, it made it very real, very believable, which I wasn't really expecting, because it's just a story, a fictitious story about something, how it might have been. It leaves so much room for just kind of hokey interpretations or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
But this really brought me back there, I felt, and taught me a lot. It made it feasible in my mind.
Well, the storyline is fiction, maybe.
Yeah. Well, I also felt it was kind of autobiographical.
Well, but the history, I've been studying Celtic history, and I've been a Druid for 30 years, right? So the costumes, the food, the houses that they were in, the politics, the basic prayers, the basic beliefs, the Druidic tools, all that is historically accurate. And who knows, maybe the story is too.